Thailand is an intoxicating place even if you don't drink, and it can be a dangerous place if you do. There's very little risk of being attacked, raped or murdered in Thailand. If that's your kind of thing, rather visit South Africa. But Thailand, which is aptly known as the land of smiles, is also the land of scams, with clever conmen preying on stupid tourists. I have no problem with people with more money than brains being conned and hoodwinked. It's part of the natural selection process, and after all, the only injury they will suffer is a bruised ego. That's pretty much the extent of the crime you face from the locals. The heaviest stuff usually involves a farang. Farang is the Thai word for foreigner, which they pronounce phalang. Like the Chinese, the Thais also transpose their R's and L's. Love is Rav, a room is a loom, corona is Kelowna, and an election is an erection. I went there 11 times, and Koh Samui became my favorite destination after my third trip. One of the things that attracted me to the island was the amount of South African expats living there. There were over 1,000 families, and they had an Afrikaans school on the island. Some of the locals even knew a bit of Afrikaans and had an uncanny ability to identify a South African in a crowd, and they would often greet you with a goeie môre. Some of them even knew Yo Masapus, although it came out more like Yo Mataput. So nice to see South African culture being exported. Another thing South Africa has exported to Thailand is crime, as I was about to find out firsthand. Enter Krista and Mike, the owners of the popular Pickles restaurant, primarily situated in the hub of the main Cheweng beachfront strip. Their South African flag was proudly on display above their trademark daily pig on a rotisserie. And man, did they put on a masterful show. They would greet you with beaming ear-to-ear smiles, and they threw money around like ANC politicians do in South Africa. What a life, what a dream, what a con. In 2004, I went there for my birthday. When Mike Halgreen found out that it was my birthday, he invited me into their plush VIP playroom. The walls, carpet and curtains were red, and so were the leather couches and chairs. It looked like the parlour Hugh Hefner had in his Playboy mansion. Halgreen's lovely impish girlfriend Pim joined us, and the drinks began to flow. She was a James Bond movie quality looker. There was a large and resplendent display fridge, packed with exotic imported beers, aperitif, champagne, and a variety of vintage wines. After sampling a few of their imported ales, Pim, who had kicked off her heels after almost falling off them several times, went to the fridge and pulled out an expensive-looking magnum of champagne. She impishly looked at the wide-eyed Halgreen before asking me to pop the cork. Feeling awkward, I declined, pointing out that I don't like champagne, which is true. But she cheekily quipped, "You like this one, I promise." Halgreen noticed that I was feeling uncomfortable, but he winked at me and gave me a reassuring thumbs up to indicate that he was okay with his girlfriend plundering his stock of expensive imported champagne. All the while we discussed the usual bullshit like sport, politics, who should be the scrum half for the Springboks, and of course, what a shithole South Africa is. Eventually the conversation drifted to business and the franchises they had in Bangkok, Phuket, and the Philippines. Halgreen said they were planning to open 30 more, and that the two other South African fellows I'd met there, Alex, a former SAA pilot, and Andre, a guy who had received a big BBE retrenchment package from Telkom, were being trained for 6 months before their franchises would be set up. All for the meager investment of 1 million baht, which was only 250,000 rand at the time. Today is double that, thanks to the rand losing 50% of its value to the Thai baht. I told Halgreen that I would never be able to run a restaurant due to my low frustration tolerance, particularly with drunken idiots and arrogant pricks who get a kick out of complaining and performing in restaurants. "Why don't you think about opening a tyre fitment centre here?" he stated. I sparked the idea. A fitment centre in paradise. Sawadee, South Africa. Thailand, here I come. Remember, by now I was well and truly smashed after 3 bottles of movie star champagne. I would have fallen for anything like most fools in paradise do. He said that he and Christo Daniels had the ideal property for one and that there would be no problem getting a business license because Christo was connected to the top guys in the Thai government, including the guy who in his words was the Trevor Manuel of Thailand. That comparison should already have been a warning sign. I was thrilled and told him that I would return to South Africa to talk to my business partner Mark about us investing in this brilliant plan, and that Mark and I would return in September. He even joked about throwing Pim into the deal, who had just left after vainly trying to get me to go dancing with her. I told her that I don't dance, which again is true. On an island where there are 50 women to a man, it would not be very smart going on a dancing date with an ex-Special Forces Kufut operative who had played rugby for the Blue Bulls in the 90s girlfriend. The only risk you run pursuing an unattached companion in Thailand is one that has trapped many unsuspecting players leg before wicket. There's a saying in Thailand that the most beautiful girls aren't. Once while in Pattaya, a guy jumped from his 4th floor balcony after making a startling discovery. His new gorgeous girlfriend had a really special surprise for him. Fortunately for him, an awning below broke his fall, and he got away with a broken leg. If he'd missed it and hit the cement below, he'd almost certainly not be around to recount the harrowing story of his cock up in paradise today. And it isn't always that easy to tell. The obvious giveaway is the flirty way they dress and walk. But back to the bigger deception I'd obliviously been lured into. I went home and told Mark about the fantastic guys I'd met in SAMUI and told him that he needed to accompany me on my next visit in September. Mark told me that his wife would never allow him to go, even if he told her it was a business trip. He once casually hinted that he wanted to go to SAMUI with me, and she cut his conjugal rights off for a month. Then he hatched a masterful plan. One of his friends owned a farm on the coast in Mozambique and told us about the fantastic fishing there. So Mark told his wife we were going fishing on Duncan's farm in Mozambique, and she bought it. September came and I returned to Thailand with my equally excited business partner Mark. We booked into my favorite beachfront resort, Seascape. I stayed there a few times before, but I warned Mark not to book room 203. I'd been in that room twice before and I wasn't in the mood for another supernatural experience with the undead. That's right, the room was haunted. Sorry to disappoint all you atheists out there, but there is a spiritual world, and some of its inhabitants are violent fucks. Sorry to disappoint you. The first time I stayed in the room, I was awoken in the early hours of the morning. I felt like I was having a fit or seizure. I was semi-paralyzed and I felt like I was being electrocuted. There was an eerie bluish hue in the room emanating from the bathroom. I felt like I was being pinned down, and the attack only subsided after I began repeating the Lord's Prayer. When I returned a year later, I'd completely forgotten about the encounter and thought nothing of it when they booked me into room 203 again. I guess they thought because I hadn't complained the time before I was either okay with the nocturnal happenings in the room or that Gunther was okay with me being there. They would have been wrong on both counts, because Gunther reintroduced himself to me that night and I could instantly tell he wasn't happy to see me again. He came at me with all his might and wrath this time. I realized he was trying to strangle me. but I fought him off while praying profusely. The attack lasted some time, probably around about half an hour, and I was not imagining it. The next morning I decided that I wasn't on holiday in Thailand to battle the principalities and powers of darkness, so I went to the front desk and asked them to book me into another room. The girls at the front desk were a bit confused, but the manageress, who spoke better English and had overheard me, stepped in. "You have problem with loom?" she asked knowingly. I just nodded. "Many have," she added, immediately summoning a porter to assist me, handing him a new set of keys. When I saw that the porter was moving me to one of their beachfront cabanas, which was almost 4 times more expensive, I headed back to the desk. She must have read my mind, because before I could speak, she smiled graciously and said, "No, Wally, new loom, same plus." And that, folks, is the gospel truth. Make of it what you want. Science does not come close to accounting for everything on this planet. And don't let anyone fool you otherwise. I found out that a German guy was murdered in that room a few months prior to my first visit. He'd been strangled in that same bed. But back to living villains and fiends, which are far more dangerous. After checking in, Mark and I went to our rooms to freshen up before heading to Pickles to talk to our new connections about our dream venture on the island. Christo and Mike were overjoyed to see us, and we exchanged brotherly hugs, even though they never knew Mark. Mike instantly ordered us a round of ice-cold beers and a tray of Drambuie shots on crushed ice as a welcoming gesture. The trademark pig was sizzling away on the spit. These guys are such pros, I thought. But where there's a pro, there's almost always a con when South Africans are involved. Christo and Mike told us about a new club that had just opened on the island and said that they would catch up with us after closing up at midnight. But by the time midnight arrived, I'd already purchased 2 bamboo bird cages from a vendor, large enough to fit one of Snow White's little friends into, even though they probably wouldn't have been too happy about it. How to get them back to the hotel and then home obviously never occurred to the new big investor in town. But I have an excuse, and it wasn't that I couldn't find a dwarf. I did not know that the local Sansom whiskey has an 80% alcohol volume, so I was twice as intoxicated after 10 whiskies as I would normally pace myself to be. I had close to the equivalent of a bottle of Witblitz in my arse. The only thing I could remember the next morning were those 2 beautiful bird cages I'd bought and despairingly parted ways with after lapsing into a coma. But Mark was even more in despair than I was. And as much as I tried to reason with him, he flew home later that day despite my warnings about someone in his condition embarking on another 26-hour flying journey. But it wasn't his hangover, it was his guilt. In his drunken state, he made the fatal mistake of calling his wife to confess that he hadn't gone on a fishing holiday to Mozambique, because they'd cancelled the flight, so we bought tickets to Thailand instead. It took her less than 3 seconds to destroy his pathetic attempt to con her. Maybe his role in this story will earn him an entry into the Guinness Book of Records for the shortest holiday in Thailand. It lasted less than 18 hours. I went to see Christo and Mike and told them that Mark had left and that I would not be able to party with him again for a few days and maybe never, due to alcohol poisoning. As this would be saving me up to 3,000 baht a day, I told them that I would like to have some shirts made up while I was still incapacitated from my near-death experience. Mike Halgreen instantly recommended a tailor named Don over the road from their restaurant, bragging that all his shirts and the restaurant staff's Madiba shirts were made by his highly recommended stitchman, so I went over. While Don the tailor was measuring me up, a short shaven-headed guy entered the shop eyeing me apprehensively. "Excuse me for asking, but are you from South Africa?" he inquired nervously in Afrikaans. After affirming that I was by replying in Afrikaans, he introduced himself as Willem and asked me if I would mind if he continued speaking in Afrikaans, making an eye gesture behind Don the tailor's back. I understood what he meant and said, "Geen probleem." Don the Stitch would hopefully not become Don the Snitch. Then he proceeded to tell me the horror story about my new best mates in Thailand. He warned me that I was in grave danger. He told me about them using Alex the pilot as their front man without Alex even being aware of it. "Have they also offered you a franchise?" he inquired. I told him about the Fitment Center idea and he turned white. "Have you given them any money?" And I could see that he was genuinely relieved to hear that I hadn't. "I gave them 1 million baht," he continued. "They caught me just like they're planning to catch you. You won't see your money again and they are dangerous." He told me they were looking for him and that he had shaved his head and even his eyebrows to disguise himself. Then he told me that Mike Halgreen was wanted for murder in South Africa and that Christa Daniels had escaped the country after being convicted of fraud using fake identity documents. He told me that after his 6-month training period was over, it became apparent that his franchise would not be opening anytime soon, so he told them he wanted to go home to visit his family for a month. He told me that he had packed his bags and was ready to leave the next afternoon, but that while he went out to town in the morning, his house was burgled and his passport and clothing had been stolen. Burglaries are virtually unheard of in Thailand, and his suspicions intensified. The next week, Daniels flew to South Africa, and Willem was smart enough to make the connection and make the inquiries, and he duly found out that Daniels had used his name and passport to travel to South Africa. Willem told me that they had ordered a hit on him, but that the Thai mafia had made contact with him and told him about it and informed him that they had had enough of the 2 conmen operating on their turf and had decided to do a hit on them instead. I immediately had to think of what my options were. Do a runner like Willem had, which would undoubtedly alert them, or go there and play along in order to buy time and hope that Don the tailor had not recognized Willem. I knew that leaving with Willem would raise Don's suspicions, so I told him that I would go over to them and keep the charade going, and that it would be best if we greeted each other and went separate ways after our discussion ended. When I got back, Halgreen seemed uncharacteristically subdued and distracted, and I was wondering if he was onto me. Eventually I asked him why he was looking so worried, and he mentioned that they had been tipped off about the Thai mafia ordering a hit on them, pointing out a vehicle with tinted windows that had been passing the restaurant slowly at regular intervals for the past couple of hours, removing any doubts that what Willem had told me was the truth. As I was sitting alongside Halgreen at the table, I joked that after dodging bullets in the bush war, copping one in Thailand wasn't on my itinerary. But Halgreen said that they would not try anything while the place was so busy with people and traffic. He said that if they were going to attempt a hit, it would be later that night while they were cashing up, joking that if they got him, he would come back and fuck them up in his next life. Then he told me not to worry about our venture and that they had an even better opportunity for Mark and I in the Philippines. You can read about what happened in the Philippines on the internet on asiascams.com, which includes a report by Alex, the pilot, explaining how they had duped him for over a year, warning people to steer clear of the 2 dangerous scamsters from South Africa. Here is an excerpt from Alec Cross's statement on the website. For almost a year, I was showcased to potential investors while I received no financial return or benefit whatsoever. Following many discussions and arguments, I was then made a franchise developer, which entitled me to a monthly salary as well as a commission on any franchises sold. Needless to say that none of these payments ever materialized. Although I ate and drank it in the restaurants, as some sort of compensation I suppose, I was not paid anything for more than a year. I was on the receiving end of blatant exploitation, as was the case with basically anybody and everybody that was on the receiving end of dealing with these people. This included employees, suppliers, and other investors too. After conning Alex and many others, they both fled Koh Samui in 2006 to resume their out-of-Africa franchise scam in the Philippines. But in 2010, Daniels had to flee after murdering his new 22-year-old Filipino girlfriend, who was a GRO, which means guest relations officer, at the Valle Verde resort in the Philippines. He had hidden a body in his basement, but his driver discovered a body wrapped up in black bags in the freezer and reported it to the police, who arrested Daniels. But Daniels paid the girl's family $10,000 to drop the charges. It was obviously just a stalling tactic, as he knew they could still easily turn him in any time after receiving the money or continue demanding more money to keep them quiet. Shortly after returning to South Africa in 2010, Daniels laid low while Halgreen ran the scam operation in Cebu City, until Halgreen also had to flee in 2014 after murdering his girlfriend, who had threatened to spill the beans on their scam. In 2015, Daniels launched another restaurant franchise scam on his home turf. He opened up Fish Shack restaurants in Fish Hoek and Milnerton in Cape Town, and again conned his creditors and would-be franchise buyers out of millions. After the Fish Shack scam was exposed in 2017, Daniels seems to have disappeared off the face of the planet. Likewise, after fleeing the Philippines, Halgreen has also vanished, and where they are now is anybody's guess. There is only one photo of Daniels on the net, and whenever we took photos, he would always find a reason to attend to something urgent going on in the restaurant. The modus operandi was brilliant. They would set up one main franchise in a prime location to lure investors in. It was a dream get-out option for disgruntled South Africans who could see through the big Rainbow Nation lie, not realizing that they were unwittingly falling for another. They used this logo to scam millions out of people. Why nobody has filed a case against them is mystifying. Could it be that they aren't alive to tell the tale? After all, murder was not something these two were strangers to. Where are Daniels and Halgreen now? What are they up to? There's hardly any digital footprint of them on the internet. All records of their existence have been removed. There is not a solitary photo of Halgreen on the net. The photos used in this video were taken by a friend who was also traveling with us at the time. If you visited Koh Samui between 2003 and 2007 and met them, and have any photos or information you would like to share, you can email me at my name, which is celsom@live.com. All information will be treated in the strictest confidence. So to wrap up this crazy story, what happened to Willem, Pim and Alex? Are they okay? Alex went quiet after posting on Asia's scams. When I saw this report back in 2011, I tried to contact him without any success. I also tried contacting Alex after leaving Thailand after finding out about the scam, but I could not get any information on his whereabouts or contacts. A friend of mine traveled there in 2007 He runs a well-known tavern in Cape Town and noted that they were not their normal welcome to our dream in paradise selves, and that the bar stock had been run down to virtually nothing. This was shortly before they moved their operation to the Philippines. If you're out there, Alex, contact me if you see this. This is why I stood up the date with the maitre d' when you tried your hand at playing Cupid. And pretty Pim, I pray that you are safe and well, and that maybe someday we'll go dancing at the Green Mango after all. And did Willem, who took a considerable risk to approach me in Don the Tailor's shop, just a matter of meters away from his pursuers, make it out alive? Why did the Thai mafia not carry out the hit on them? Al Green is a trained special forces operative. Did the fact that the South Africans had been tipped off scare the Thai mafia off ultimately? There are so many unanswered questions to this crazy case and so little information. How did Daniels manage to make so many trips back to South Africa as a wanted man? He once boasted about his contacts in South Africa. He apparently played some kind of senior advisory role in the Cadessa negotiations before the 1994 elections, assisting with the drafting of the new constitution, which indicates that he is connected at the highest level, if what he says is true. With Daniels, the lines between reality and bullshit are clearly blurred. It is really fishy how he managed to come back here after fleeing the Philippines after committing murder without even bothering to hide his identity. How deep does this case go? Why has there been no media coverage? Is this case still alive? Where are Daniels and Al Green now, and what are they doing? Daniels will be in his mid-60s now, and Al Green probably in his early 50s. Hopefully this video will jog some memories and bring out some more information on a case that has mysteriously been kept under the radar in 3 countries at least. If more information comes to light, I will do a follow-up. Coming up next, I will tell you the story of my bizarre friendship with Yuri the Russian Ulyanitsky, the infamous Cape Town gangster, and how I nearly got caught up in the crossfire the fateful night he was gunned down at Woodbridge Island in Milnerton, Cape Town in 2007. Other than his attackers, I was probably the last person to see him alive. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe to the channel by simply clicking the red subscribe button below this video. Once you have done that, a notification bell will pop up alongside it. Click on the bell icon if you would like YouTube to send you a notification whenever I upload a new video. These are just 2 of 26 stories adapted from our book, The Reluctant Kinsman, which is currently available as an ebook and can be ordered direct from me per email at 250 Rand. It is a 483-page story that will take you to the Greek Isles, the British Isles, the not-so-holy land, Egypt, Southeast Asia, Singapore, the Negev Desert, the Angolan border, and other exotic places.